These are the best hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. My guy, you don't want to be caught lacking, because without knowing what the best hand traps are, you can lose every single game. My friend, and even if you aren't playing hand traps, you need to know what are going to be the most played hand traps against you so you can learn how to dodge them. Of course, big dog, the only thing I ask from you is your undying loyalty. Make sure that you're subscribed and notified up, but also let me know what other type of tier list you'd like to see. Bang! Alright, big dog, so we actually do have one new hand interruption that came out in Age of Overlord in Darkhole Dragon, and we'll talk about that card a little bit later, but I'm going to be basing every single one of these strategies on how powerful they are right now and what you can do with them. Also, since we don't do these hand trap tier lists often, I'll be mentioning how powerful these cards are against some of the strategies in Valiant Smashers as well, and giving them a rating according so. We have 5 different categories, big dog. Must play is obviously the cards that you must play inside of your deck, all the way down to okay, boomer. These hand traps were probably once good once upon a time, but they're not working right now. Let's go ahead and start off with Artifact Lancea, a monster that prevents your opponent from banishing cards, but only on their turn. I think that this is a sideboard-worthy Yu-Gi-Oh card. Artifact Lancea is really good against rogue decks like Dinos and Phantom Knight, and against some of the better decks, it can be pretty good against Rescue Ace to prevent them from summoning Rescue Ace Turbulence or Preventer. But keep in mind, if a Rescue Ace player just has the Rescue Ace Emergency, they can bypass Artifact Lancea, which means that this is a card that probably should be reserved for the sideboard if you see a lot of those strategies I just mentioned. Lancea has put itself in a situational presence. Ash Blossom has actually done the same, but the opposite way. I'm actually really happy that this card got a reprint for the 25th anniversary, making it accessible to everyone, because right now Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring is a very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card. I like to say that anytime there are spell cards to be able to interact with Ash Blossom, the card is extremely good, because when you use Ash Blossom on those particular cards, they typically go to the graveyard, meaning that you traded one card for another. More often than not, if you are playing hand traps, you probably should consider Ash Blossom as your first choice. It's just overall a great Yu-Gi-Oh card that applies to every single matchup in the game. The Bystial monsters, my boy. There was a point in time where the Bystial monsters were considered must-play Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and to be honest, I still think a lot of players think that they should be banned. Bystials are pretty good against decks like Unchained, Tearlament, Phantom Knight, and even from Valiant Smashers, it can be pretty decent against Memento, but there are a ton of fire-based strategies in the game, as that's where Konami wants to push Yu-Gi-Oh toward. In hindsight, I actually think the Bystial monsters came out at the correct time. It's a borderline Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's really good, but only if you are playing a particular deck that can benefit from the Bystial monsters on your own, and bonus if you just so happen to be playing against those dark and reliant type decks. It's not as impressive as it would be if we were in a light or dark format, but it's still a solid, sturdy Yu-Gi-Oh card that can be really good in the game. Contact C. My boy, what are we doing here? Contact C used to be a really good Yu-Gi-Oh card. Players previously used this against decks like Branded and Pearly, and I would still say that this card is still pretty good against decks like Branded because they're fusion locked, but any deck that uses SP Little Knight? Come on, boomer. Unfortunately, Contact C is only really good when decks need to be able to perform a specific summon that can't use Contact C. Right now, because of monsters like SP Little Knight, I would stay far away from this card. Sword Soul Iris, my boys, the Dama of Mamas. It is true, there is a ton of effect negation in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and Sword Soul Iris could summon herself to the side of the field as a 2500 attack monster. I think there needs to be more research. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it, research.
The internet is for poor.
What are you doing?
I think you guys will regret the day you clowned me about Sword Soul Iris, especially when I make a Sword Soul Iris anti-meta Yu-Gi-Oh deck that destroys the meta, but for right now, I'll let you have this laugh. I think in a perfect world, Iris could actually be a good Yu-Gi-Oh card, we just need to experiment with it a little more. Diddy Crow is amazing against so many Yu-Gi-Oh decks. It's almost as versatile as Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring because there are so many strategies that are reliant on the graveyard. It is a really good card. Some of this card's best matchups are those decks like Tearlament, Phantom Knight, and even Memento, but it's also good against those fire-based warrior decks like the Infernable strategy, Rescue Ace, and also really good against Unchained and so many other strategies. Basically, if the deck cannot play Dimensional Shifter, DD Crow is a solid Yu-Gi-Oh card. Sometimes it doesn't have that impact that Ash Blossom does, but it's pretty good at being able to hit every single matchup. Now, this is typically a hot take on where I put Dimension Shifter, because when Dimension Shifter is good, it's great. It really sucks to be picking on those decks, but Tearlament, Phantom Knight, Memento, Infernobles, Dragons, the list are endless. This card can be a complete blowout. The problem is the other matchups, it is incredibly useless. I would go ahead and put Dimensional Shifter into borderline. There are some Yu-Gi-Oh decks that thrive off of this particular Yu-Gi-Oh card, and then there are some Yu-Gi-Oh strategies that would be better off at having it in the side deck. This card is that genuine essence of, do you want to be incredibly toxic and lose against certain Yu-Gi-Oh matches, or do you want to be a good Yu-Gi-Oh player and potentially draw it when the time is right? Genuinely, the choice is up to you. Now, if your deck just so happens to be weak to Droll and Logbird and can play Dimension Shifter, not a bad idea. I'm gonna put Droll and Logbird in the must play right now. To be real with you guys, it'd be easier to list the decks that Droll and Logbird isn't good against. There's decks like Unchained, Labyrinth, and Rescue Ace where Droll and Logbird could be caught lacking, but then there's some times where Droll and Logbird can actually still be powerful against those strategies. The reason why I'm putting Droll and Logbird as a must play is because in YCS Richmond, there were so many players that had it in their main board, but even if they didn't have it in their main board, they had it in their sideboard. This card is really, really powerful right now. It's really hard on where to put Effect Veiler. I almost want to put it in the must play, but I would say Effect Veiler is incredibly good right now. Its biggest uses is being able to help hinder those decks like Rescue Ace and Infernable. But to be honest with you, Effect Veiler is like DD Crow and Ash Blossom, with the bonus is that if you draw multiple Effect Veilers, you can use them all in the same turn. The only drawback, of course, is that you can only activate it during your opponent's main phase, but to be honest with you, that's not really that bad considering most effects activate the main phase anyway. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme is a lot stronger than what you guys think. I'm actually gonna go ahead and put it in the really good. There's this little ninja looking thing running around called SP Little Knight, and in the last 2 YCSs, 64 out of these 64 players used at least one, some of them even using 2. That just goes to show you how powerful link summoning is in this Yu-Gi-Oh card game, and that makes Fantastical Dragon Phantasme not only strong against SP Little Knight, it's actually strong against decks like Unchained. But even the decks that don't link summon as much, such as Infernable, Dragons, and Vanadium, have to respect this card because not only does it prevent targeting, it also allows you to get other cards into your hand, which can be really powerful. I'm really torn on where to put Framegear Gamma. I think Framegear Gamma is an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh card. It can be really, really good if it weren't limited. I'm gonna go ahead and put Framegear Gamma in the borderline. If this card was at 3, we play 3 of them in almost every deck. Especially if your finishing board is just SP Little Knight, you can use it to get rid of an opponent's monster. And now since you don't have any monsters, Framegear Gamma would be live. The reason why I would put Framegear Gamma in borderline though is because it is limited to 1. I think that if you were playing this card, you're going to need to be able to compensate for being limited. If you're not, then you might just draw the driver more than the Gamma, but who knows? Driver's the more important card, right? Right? Yeah, I'm coping. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit actually is sneaky good. Against the Newt Centurion strategy, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is actually crazy because a lot of their monsters want to be face-up spell and trap cards anyways. Also, a lot of times you may value getting rid of the monster as opposed to letting them have their effect. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is not only good at doing that, but can also get rid of face-up spell and trap cards that are activating their effects, which is really prevalent in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, my dog. This card is easily the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forget hand traps, it is the #1 card that everybody should be playing. TheCaliEffect faithfuls will never let me live that down that I bought Ghost Sisters and Spooky Dogwood thinking it was the next best hand trap. But overall, this card is really good if you're playing a deck that happens to make games really slow and you know that you're going into time a lot. This card could outright win you games by giving you life points. It also got a reprint in Valiant Smashers, so I'm looking for the collector's rares. Ghostbow has some sneaky good interactions that not a lot of people notice. It can stop the simple spoils engine by being able to hit wanted, which I think is really valuable right now. It can also stop cards like Big Welcome Labyrinth and Tier Limit effects. The problem with this card is that its uses sometimes work and sometimes don't. I would put Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion at that borderline. It is a good Yu-Gi-Oh card in the correct situations. You just have to be able to play a deck that can compensate for it not being the main hand interruption to stop your opponent. It's going to need to be combined with some other interruptions to make sure that your combo or your opponent combo does not go off. Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill is a different type of effect veiler. You can't activate multiple copies in the same turn, but you can activate this card during any phase. Really good. One thing that I would say about this particular format is monster effect negation, monster effect negation, monster effect negation.
Developers.
Being able to stop your opponent's monster effects is king here. And that's why cards like Ghost Mourner and Effect Veiler are really high on this tier list. Ghost Reaper and Mourner Cherries. Oh, why do we get here every time? There are players that still swear that Ghost Reaper and Mourner Cherries is the best card in the game. It stops my opponent extra deck summon. Low key, who cares? Until SP Little Knight came out. I am not gonna cap, I had genuinely thought of citing Ghost Reaper and Mourner Cherries to stop SP Little Knight. I mean, everybody has the card, right? Right? Card's not expensive. What really sucks about Yu-Gi-Oh is that the only thing that's preventing me from actually sideboarding this card is that I can't just look at my opponent and determine if they're broke or not. That is the only reason why they don't have SP Little Knight. But hypothetically, in a perfect world where everybody is playing 2 SP Little Knights and we know it's one of the best cards in the game, using this to be able to stop your opponent's SP is actually really good. This might be better than a side-worthy Yu-Gi-Oh card, but I guess everybody would have to have SPs, right? No material, my boys. The time is over, guys. It's an okay boomer card. The fact that you have to have no cards on the field to use no material is a huge drawback. And oftentimes if you use no material on one monster, they'll just summon others. Like, what are we doing? I'm not saying that the card can't be good in certain situations. It's just bad in most. Infinite Impermanence is like Effect Veiler and Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, except you're not going to get triple tactics talent when you activate it. I'm going to put it in must play. Now, there are some things that I want to tell you guys about these effect negation cards. One, they did get a little bit weaker because of SP Little Knight being able to banish itself and the card that your effect negation card is targeting. But two, that can actually come into your favor because you just got rid of 2 cards on the field. Or you just force the effect of SP Little Knight. Overall, Infinite Impermanence is one of the best must-play hand traps because it's good at being able to stop the opponent, but can also be used to be able to start your turn and get rid of an opponent's threat. Nibiru the Primal Being. Do you smell what the rock is cooking, my boy? At the event, we actually seen quite a few players use Nibiru in the main board and in the sideboard. I think Nibiru is borderline really good, almost must play. Now, Nibiru is a trash Yu-Gi-Oh card by itself most of the time. And that's because a lot of times your opponent can stop the Nibiru with Primal Being. But if you're playing multiple hand interruptions, Nibiru is a crazy good Yu-Gi-Oh card, which is why I want to put it at really good. Also, keep in mind, if you're playing a deck that doesn't normally play hand traps, your opponent may disrespect the Nibiru, so it may be cool to slide that in there real quick. Retaliating C is really good against decks like Pearly? I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, unless everybody's playing Pearly in your area, I'm gonna put it in okay boomer. I mean, being able to search an insect monster is cool if Max C was back, but for right now, Retaliating C, not that great right now. Now, you guys are going to be actually surprised where I put Saareus. Saareus is a lot better than what you guys think. Saareus is really good. So there's a couple of things I want to mention about Saareus. Is first, it is searchable through Herald of Arclight. That's crazy. That means cards like Dogmatic Punishment and Nadir Servant only become that much stronger because not only does it search a card to be able to protect your monsters, it also searches a card to be able to dodge cards like SP Little Knight. I think the reason why Saareus wasn't played as much is because there was a guessing game if there's a lot of targeting effects. Now we know there is a ton of targeting effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Saareus helps you protect yourself from those. Skullmeister is really good against decks like Vanadium, Infernoble, Dragon, Tier Limit. I mean, to be honest, the card's actually a lot better than what people are giving it credit. Skullmeister is similar to Ghost Bell in Haunted Mansion. Because its job is so niche, hitting some of those other cards other than the main meat pieces of the combo. It needs to have another hand interruption to be able to complement it, but when it works, it works. Frame Epsilon, I think this is a perfect sideboard worthy card, especially if you got the Gamma back there. There's actually a ton of great Yu-Gi-Oh! Spell cards in the game that this card can stop, and it might be just game ending. Consider this card if you are playing a monster heavy deck, or if you can use framegear Gamma to its fullest potential. And lastly would be Darkhole Dragon, the new card from Age of Overlord. Where would I put this card? Okay, so there's a two-parter for this particular card. Personally, right now, I would put this card in OK Boomer. You genuinely are a boomer if you're banking on Darkhole winning you games. But seriously, if you read Darkhole Dragon, holy crap, let's go ahead and give it the real prognosis. This card's side-worthy. Darkhole Dragon can summon itself from the graveyard or hand anytime a monster is destroyed. Any monster. This can actually be used to be able to finish off games or protect you from losing the game. And then it gets you a Darkhole. I don't know about you guys, but I think Darkhole Dragon is a genuine sleeper Yu-Gi-Oh card, and I'm going to be picking up my 25th anniversary rares very, very soon. And that's all that I have for the hand trap tier list, big dog. Of course, if you genuinely enjoy tier lists, then go ahead and let me know which one would you like to see next. And if you want to see more amazing TheCaliEffect content, be sure to check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.